So welcome everyone to our Thursday evening class. And as we are all familiar faces today, then I propose that we sit for meditation together for about 45 minutes. If you'd like to make yourself comfortable. So we start by adjusting our posture for meditation, bearing in mind that when we come to settling ourselves for a beneficial practice, generally more haste makes for less speed. So we take the time that we need to make sure we're comfortable and we're in a position by which we're sitting in a relaxed way, whether on a meditation mat or on a chair, by making sure our body is relaxed first of all. You can consider making sure you're relaxed as being a down payment on the success of the meditation ahead. So each time we sit for meditation, the main thing we need to do is to bring two things into balance, namely being conscious and being calm or comfortable in equal measures. So when we start out, we focus simply on relaxing our body. Whether we're sitting on a chair or on a meditation mat. Because relaxation is at the heart of meditation. And only by starting from a certain level of relaxation and calm can our mind truly settle. So we make sure our body is relaxed, and even the way we close our eyes should be as gentle as possible. Naturally, as if we're about to go to sleep. Reminding ourselves that this is a time that we've set aside for ourselves, truly to relax, recharge and replenish our body and mind. And once we've closed our eyes in a natural and relaxed way, we can simply forget about using our eyes anymore. Because in order to access the inner experience, in order to visualize in the meditation, we no longer need to use our eyes. But we simply use our feeling of relaxation and of contentment. So we take a moment to check in with our body, to relax and release any tension there, making sure our muscles are free of any hidden stress. And whether we've meditated many times before, or whether this is our first time, we shouldn't overlook the importance of scanning down through our body, or making a body scan, in order to make sure each and every muscle of our body is properly relaxed. So we check the way we've closed our eyes is as gentle as possible, and that our eyebrows are free of any tension. We might try conjuring up a small but contented smile on our face, as if we are embracing a tide of relaxation which is flowing down through our body, relaxing and releasing any tension, whether it be in our shoulders, our arms, our hands or fingers. We make sure our back and our legs are relaxed, all the way down to our feet and our toes. And if necessary, we may scan back and forth for a few moments just to make sure any inadvertent tension is gone. And at this point we might take a deep and soothing breath all the way in and feel the cool and refreshing air as it fills up our body with relaxation, calm and contentment. Even as we exhale slowly and gently, we might allow that sense of relaxation and contentment to spread outwards, blanketing us with warmth and comfort, allowing us to feel calmer, more relaxed, almost as if our body has become weightless and free of any constriction or tension. And when our body is relaxed, our mind will also start to feel relaxed as well. Because in many ways the two are connected to one another. But to help our mind become calmer still, we just need to put aside any mental chatter while bringing our awareness back into the present moment. There's no need for us to worry or plan for the moment, because these will only detract from our peace in the present moment. And although life may demand for us to pay a lot of attention to others around us in the world and their well-being, meditation is time for us at least to start with ourselves, to give time to our inner well-being, to make sure our mind is in the right place, a positive place, a brighter place. Because for every second that our mind is in the present moment, contented and patiently observing, and it's as if it is immersed in that beneficial energy arising from the meditation. And this is why every step of the way during our meditation should be a pleasure to us. Every moment of the meditation ought to be one where we are taken into a deeper place of calm and relaxation. So there's no point in worrying about getting to a destination or a goal, because it's more about enjoying the journey, enjoying the meditation session every step of the way. And if we can engage with the meditation in this way, it will ensure our inner journey is smooth and fluid, and before we know it, we will have reached our destination even without realizing it. So for now, we don't dwell too much on where we're going, because it will only pull us away from the present moment. We try to avoid any expectations or anticipation, while remaining in the here and now, simply relaxing for the interim. And in order to help us to stay in the present moment, we bring our attention to focus at a single point. And that point can essentially be anywhere we like, whether it's at the center of our body, elsewhere in the body, or even outside of us if that's more comfortable. Focusing the mind by whatever method we feel comfortable with, whatever is easy for us to use. It might be visualizing an imaginary object or feeling one. It might be observing what is already there, or it might be using the mantra. The key is to apply our mind gently. And if we're imagining an object, it might be something like the full moon, a sun, or a shining star within. We can imagine it however or wherever we like, as long as it leaves us feeling calm and relaxed. In essence, the visualization or the mantra is just a skillful means to keep us in the present moment and to keep us relaxed, helping our mind to become calm and still. And if the thoughts in the mind are persistent, then we can we can call to mind the traditional mantra with the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. Or perhaps even use an even simpler mantra like the words brighter and brighter, clearer and clearer, brighter and brighter, clearer and clearer. And every time we repeat the mantra, it's like a soothing lullaby that will coax our mind back to a natural state, free of extraneous thoughts, while allowing the mind to relocate itself in the present moment. Eventually we'll come to a point where all we want to do is relax. And if it's easier for you to make use of a feeling, then it may mean that your meditation entails nothing more than allowing yourself to tune into that feeling of relaxation, doing nothing, simply letting go of every other thing. Simply allowing your thoughts to grind to a standstill in accordance with the advice that is the legacy of the founder of our tradition, that stopping the thoughts in the mind is the key to success. The way we allow the thoughts to come to a standstill is by being relaxed and being calm, allowing the thoughts to grind to a standstill on their own. Through whatever relaxation we feel in the here and now. The key is just to be content, simply to focus, to appreciate what we have right now, and not to worry about what's to come or what's lacking. In essence, we already have everything we need to contribute to our success in meditation. As long as we feel calm, comfortable and relaxed, all we need to do is to surrender to that sense of patience and calm. And by patience, I mean the patience not to interfere in the process. In any case, before we know it, this relaxation will begin to grow and expand, allowing us to feel more and more content. Because inner peace, the gift of true happiness, has always been there within us. And the key to unwrapping that gift is simply to be content, to let go and to relax. And that gift of inner peace will gradually unwrap itself, releasing inner contentment and the brightness that has always been within us, waiting for us to reconnect with it. So for now, we take this precious time together simply to follow our feeling of relaxation, to allow it to guide the mind back within ourselves. With every second that passes in our meditation, we'll feel a little bit more calm, a little bit more relaxed, while our mind becomes clearer, brighter, more skillful by increment. Before we know it, the darkness or negativity, the shadows in our mind, will be displaced by contentment, calm and brightness. So for now, we keep our mind on track at the center of our body, lightly and gently nurturing this sense of peace, tranquility, freedom from thought within ourselves for a few more moments now in silence, until we come to the appropriate time. Keep our mind on track at the center of the body the whole time. Lightly, gently and continuously. We find our mind wanders away onto other things. Each time we realize, we just bring it back again to the center of the body as before. If the inner object disappears, we can conjure up a new one. And if it changes, then we just follow it in its new form. One way we can understand the way the mind works is by a metaphor of an old, leaky garden hose that has a lot of holes in it. So instead of reaching the nozzle, all the water seeps out of the holes before it ever gets there. Any water that reaches the end of the hose is very weak and very feeble. But if we were to plug all the holes in the pipe, then we'd be able to transform that old leaky hose into a power hose. And the mind works in just the same way. When we have a lot of distractions, pulling our attention off to the past or the future, to thoughts, theories, daydreams, or any other sort of thing, then the focus of our attention becomes feeble. However, when we can learn to focus our attention, it's like plugging the holes in the pipe. We recover very powerful, very focused attention. When it gets to a certain level of refinement, we would start to be able to call that samadhi, or proper concentration. The mind that's concentrated in a state of samadhi can know things on a very, very subtle level, such as attaining a state of one-pointedness and unification of the mind. Some people already think they're there when they detect some sort of joy in their body. But if it's truly samadhi, if it's really the state of samadhi, then it will be a state of uninterrupted knowing of the mental object. So it's not an object that we know through the five senses, it's not a bodily sensation, but it's an object arising in the mind, sometimes perceived as light, and it becomes possible to know that object uninterrupted for potentially hours at a time. The uninterrupted knowing means that no interrupting thoughts arise at that time. No sound around us disturbs us anymore. No sensation in our body can distract us. Often we don't even notice the passing of time because our awareness is so completely absorbed onto the object of our meditation. And this is often accompanied by a natural sense of bliss and joy, which is the equivalent of plugging up all the holes in the garden hose. So for now, we continue to cultivate our sense of one-pointedness in the mind, keeping our mind on track at the center of the body, lightly and gently for a few more moments now in silence, until we come to time for some loving-kindness meditation together. Continue to maintain our mind at the center of the body, always at the center of whatever inner experience we have built up for ourselves as a result of the meditation so far today. For some people, the inner experience may consist of a sense of brightness on the inside, or it may be more of a sense of well-being, like a feeling coming from within us. For some people it may be images, large or small, inside of ourselves. But as our mind becomes calmer and more peaceful from within, we may start to notice that the mind becomes more positive, becomes more clear and bright, almost as if we can feel the warmth and brightness from within, shining outwards like the light of a candle, or the aura around the full moon. Simply by relaxing our body and our mind, it's as if we can remove the shadows from our mind, the shadows of negativity in the mind. And as our mind becomes clearer, brighter, more positive, it will attract things of the same nature into our lives too, all the things on the same wavelength, whether it be positive situations, things, people, or opportunities. And it's why it's said that when your mind is in the right place, then the rest of your life will also fall into place. So now that our mind is brighter, clearer, and more positive, we take the time to spread this positivity, allowing the brightness to spread as if we would spread a smile across our face. But in this case, it's like an inner smile, a true smile from within, that we can spread and share to others. Because of the potential of the mind, this positivity can be shared outwards for the benefit of our friends, of our family, of our loved ones, simply by imagining their faces or their names, extending that positivity together with a wish that they be happy, healthy, as well as having the chance to meditate, so that they too can find their own sense of inner contentment and inner peace. We can imagine almost as if the calm that we feel within, the relaxation that we feel right now, the warmth and brightness within us, is shining outwards to pervade all sentient beings with that same warmth and contentment. And as the light of positivity grows beyond ourselves, outwards to our family, friends, others sharing our neighborhood, transcending differences and distances, we feel that we're connected together through this positivity, by this peace that we feel together. And this is how the world can become a brighter place, starting from ourselves. So from a better you, it comes to mean a better world for all. That we continue to spread our positivity, good intentions, good wishes for ourselves, for our family, for our friends, wishing them all to be healthy, happy, and protected from any negativity, danger, sickness now and forevermore, for a few more moments in silence. Sabbe Buddha Palapata Bajeka Nanjayam Balang Arahanta Nanjate Jena Rakam Bandami Sapaso Sapa Buddha Nupavena Sapa Dhamma Nupavena Sapa Sankha Nupavena Sata Soti Bhavanto Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. So far, so good, everyone. No questions at this point? So I will move gently on with our subject matter from the 38 Blessings of Life today. When I last saw you a week ago, then we finished off talking about not leaving our work undone, I believe. Blessing number 14. And that came at the tail end of a series of values and practices, mostly to do with supporting harmony in the family life. And the financial part to that at the end was to do with making sure that our family doesn't become unharmonious because of financial problems. But today we sort of embark on a new higher step on the blessings, which is to do with looking beyond creating benefit solely on the level of our family and looking more to doing something for society at large. What's known as being a pillar of society. And the first blessing in this particular subsection is to do with practicing generosity. And I'll talk about it this time, and then probably next week I will pick up with the second part of it. And it is a subject which I have talked about on various different levels. If anyone's interested, they can look back through my previous talks, but generosity was part of sort of the cultivation of merits, which I talked about as part of Buddhist concepts, entitled Doing Good That Does You Good. And I also returned to this subject on a more basic level in a talk about greed and stinginess, which was entitled 7 Myths About Generosity. And some of the objections which we looked at during that particular talk were things like the welfare state makes generosity unnecessary, that generosity is only for rich people, that if your previous experiences of being generous haven't made you any happier, then maybe you shouldn't do it anymore, that generosity should be secretive or random, that generous people shouldn't expect anything in return, that generosity only counts for the poor and needy, and that generosity encourages corruption, bribery, and holy rollers. And if you've still got any of those sort of objections to generosity, then maybe you need to go back and listen to some of the previous talks. But my hope today is that by this point in your studies or the progression of my lectures, you're a little bit more sold on the idea of generosity as being an important thing to practice for yourself and your own spiritual benefit. And it'll allow me to spend a little bit more time today looking at how to fine-tune the way you practice generosity in order that it will become something more of a blessing in your life. So before we come to generosity per se, let's look at the sequence of this subsection on becoming a pillar of society, where you'll see that after the first of the top section on being generous, number 15, then it continues on with practicing the Dharma. then looking after your extended family, and last but not least, working in a blameless way or ethical working practices. Seeing as you already have harmony in your family life, hopefully as a result of all the previous blessings which you've studied, then even if you only manage to look after your family, you could consider that you've only really broken even in terms of the goodness which you cultivate in your life. You sort of sorted things out, you've got your family on an even keel. But to give something back to society, then you need to go beyond that. And this is where the blessings in this particular subsection start to come in, where we're starting to give back something to society. And to be the sort of person thereby that other people in society can trust and look up to be a good example of an upstanding member of society. So, the logic of karma says, we shall reap what we sow. And if we provide for the happiness of others through generosity, then the karmic outcome will be that we will be provided for in terms of our own happiness or convenience in the future. Ironically, the Buddhist perspective on generosity is sometimes characterized less by the material way gifts bring benefit for the recipient, but more for the spiritual benefits which come back to you as the giver. So it's not saying, oh, I give like £100 to charity, and what benefits does that bring to the people who get the £100? But Buddhism often turns it around and says, by giving that £100, what comes to you as the person who gave? Yeah? Little bit of strange. So Buddhism actually places importance on generosity because it is seen as something which attracts positive things into your life as the giver. And some of the things which you see both in the Buddhist scriptures and in scriptures of, let's say, Christianity are things like it's better to give than to receive, because it makes you happier. For example, people who donate blood tend to, on average, be happier than people who don't. Yeah. It also communicates something about your worldview, because if you're a person who hoards, then it's like you believe that, or your worldview is that there's only limited wealth to go around, and if we don't get it, then someone else will. So that reflects something about your personality. There's also research to show that if you are a giving person, you tend to live longer, and it increases your social connectedness, helping others to perceive others more positively and charitably, and to appreciate the interdependence between people, and to appreciate the importance of cooperation in a social community. It's also said that giving is contagious. Beware. And there's many real-world examples of pay it forward, which are inspired by people who show their generous side. Giving also helps to give your life meaning. It bridges the disconnect between who you think or say you are and who you actually are. And it also increases the self-confidence and trust in those who receive gifts from us, that they will do the right thing with what they receive. If you give or share to others, then it helps you to listen to them differently. And it also means that you look upon your own resources with less attachment. And it also helps to create lasting relationships, especially in things like marriages, and generally makes you a more likable person. So these are why generosity is considered to be an indispensable part of being a pillar to society. So within Buddhism, generosity is sometimes defined a little bit in a special way. The word for generosity used in the scriptures is the word dana, which you may have heard of before. D-A-N-A. Dana. And it means sacrificing your own possessions for the benefit of other people wholeheartedly, with the intention to honor their virtue of that person or assist a person of similar social standing, or to help someone who's worse off than yourself. So if you're not wholehearted about giving, then you cannot really consider it to be dana. And the word generosity, you notice, is a little bit broader than in some other religions, where it's restricted only to the poor and needy, because it can be also to people who you respect or people of a similar social standing. In a spiritual sense, dana sometimes refers to our intention to give, so it's a giving emotion. And sometimes it can also refer more broadly to things like abstention from wrongdoing, such as in forgiveness is sometimes considered to be a form of generosity. But we'll focus today mostly on the more usual definitions for the word. In Buddhism, there's sometimes it's connected with this idea of the origin of happiness, because in Buddhism they distinguish between happiness that comes from things and happiness that doesn't rely on things. Yeah? So there's this idea that by getting happiness out of giving things away, so you're not attaching your happiness to the thing because you've given it away, then you can then discover a deeper meaning for happiness from the thing, the happiness that doesn't rely on those material objects. So non-material happiness. People can give for different reasons, and the Buddha went into quite a lot of detail about better or worse reasons for giving. The ones that are not so great are in the red, and the better ones are in the green, if not too small for you to read. So some less noble reasons might be to get something in return, so rather self-centered reasons, or to giving under duress, or giving to pay back past favors, or giving in order to procure a future favor. And there's not really very much merit per se or spiritual energy in those sorts of giving, any more than virtue signaling or giving away free samples to boost retail sales. There's nothing wrong with such giving, but it's not really what we're talking about in this context. Whereas more noble reasons for giving, the sort of pure intention behind giving, would be things like giving for giving's sake, giving simply for the sake of it, yeah? Giving to keep up a family tradition. Let's say your family has always been generous traditionally, never passing a beggar on the street without giving them something at least. Then keeping up that sort of tradition would be seen as something worth doing. Giving out of sympathy for, let's say, the monastic community, or out of a sense of appreciation for teachings received. Giving in order to make yourself a more praiseworthy person. It's not that you're fishing for compliments, but generally the wise tend to praise those who are generous by nature. And giving to improve the quality of the mind, and giving to pave the way towards a better rebirth. So supposing you were to want to give in the right way, I try to make it a little bit simpler by saying that there's almost like a checklist which you can go through in your own mind to see to check through the positive intention and which would best accompany an act of generosity. So it might mean selecting an appropriate gift, making yourself pure as a giver, which means often to do with your own conduct and intentionality, and afterwards not harboring any regrets. So the first thing is to make a positive intention or wish. As a Buddhist, you might recollect the virtues of the Triple Gem before an act of generosity to spark joy in yourself about the good thing which you are about to do. Ever tried that before? Spark joy? Sometimes simply by remembering to do that, it can completely transform your state of mind. And then you follow through. If you don't follow through, it can be rather disastrous because there's a certain teaching in the Anguttara Nikaya called the Vanicca Sutta, which says that if you pledge something but don't follow through on it, then it will be bad karma for you in the future, which will undermine the success of any, let's say, business transactions you do. Some people therefore like to declare an intention overtly as an act of resolve. For example, if you've seen almsgiving ceremonies here at the temple, then sometimes the people say certain verses to declare their intention before they make a gift. Yeah? I mean, if you come here at lunchtime, they've got a whole sort of set of verses they go through. Oh, I ask the permission to offer a certain midday meal to the monks or whatever. Yeah? That's part of the intentionality of which is then followed through on. Sometimes, if it's food on a tray, the Buddhists will hold it up to their forehead to make a wish on the basis of the food they're about to offer before they offer it. And sometimes, yes, but you should take care of what you wish for. I had the unfortunate experience of being with a bunch of women who had it in for each other, and they wished that their enemies met with a sticky end. So that would not be a skillful example of something to wish for. Yeah. And often the sort of good intention or a good wish might be, an example of it might be something like, you see the word Suttinang Vatamedanang Asavakaya Vahang Hotu. That's the Pali word for it. May these alms that I have given on this day be for an end of all defilements. Or may this be for the benefit of my loved ones, for example. But generally, the wish would end up with something like, and may I reach nirvana without delay, nibbana paccaya hotu. So, an appropriate gift, nicking flowers from the park to give at the temple, really the pure intentionality is not quite there. The joy is not really truly sparked by that sort of attitude, generosity. Often people, if it's giving things to monks or giving things as a gift, like to give something which is of a little bit better quality than they would normally use themselves. Can you see why? If it comes to something like giving someone bruised fruit or leftovers or having a whip round, although it might be a useful way to help someone who is poor or needy, but from the point of view of elevating the state of mind, it's a rather different feeling. I think you would agree. And yes, don't forget that not all giving is financial in nature. Objects of generosity which are non-physical might be sharing knowledge, either vocational knowledge or spiritual knowledge, letting go of your anger for somebody, behaving in a humble way, helping others out by volunteering, transferring merit to others, maybe a loved one who has passed away, and also showing your appreciation if you see someone else who's doing something good or who has had some good fortune. So instead of being jealous of them. So generally, if it comes to material gifts of some sort, for things which you can't go wrong on, generally speaking, would be clothing, food, shelter, medicine. What are known as the 4 basic requisites. Sometimes they go into a little bit more detail than this, especially with things that can be given to, let's say, a monastic community. Food may be given, but not aphrodisiacs. Drinks may be given, but not alcohol, which you should remember if you're the sort of person who likes to turn up at someone's door with a bottle of wine. Cloth or clothing, okay, but not immodest clothes. Vehicles or transport generally. Shoes are also counted as vehicles. Fare for traveling on public transport. Flowers, candles, incense, medical creams, bedclothes, beds, shelter, and also fuel for heating, that sort of thing. Failing that, money can also be a gift, because that can be used to buy any of the things I already mentioned. Some gift things might lead to the opposite of positive energy being generated. For example, the usual categories of vice or sleaze, alcohol for anything other than cleaning or disinfectant, matchmaking services, cigarettes, weapons, musical instruments, poison, or drugs. So, in conclusion, a gift that would lead to the fruitful practice of generosity would be clean, refined, attractive to receive. And at the time of giving, you should try to relinquish your attraction to the object. And there's a tradition in Thailand that if you're going to give flowers, you don't sniff the flowers beforehand. So good to know. Fun fact. And being a person who is in a pure state of mind or a high state of mind, either by having meditated or being well established in the precepts, would be something like amplifying the joy felt by an act of generosity. So in conclusion, there are generally 4 pure things involved with an effective, an act of generosity that is effective in uplifting the mind. And that would be the gift itself is appropriate, well chosen, not inappropriate. Secondly, your intention would be pure, it not being given for the wrong reasons, both before, during, and after the act of giving. Thirdly, the person who receives it ought to be someone who you feel is worthy as a recipient. For example, if you give money to a beggar on the street who you think is going to buy a cup of tea or a sandwich with it, and you see them later drinking whiskey, then how do you feel about that? Like you've been had? So it's because the nature of the recipient has somehow let you down as an unreliable person. So the Buddha taught to be fairly selective about who you single out for your generosity. And we'll see more about this later on in the subsection on helping various members of your family. And you yourself should be pure of heart when you give something. A story to finish off with. Okay, a quick story about an exemplary act of generosity which didn't involve money. And this is a story from many aeons ago of the Bodhisattva, the present Buddha in a previous lifetime, when he was cultivating perfections At that time, there was a previous Buddha still around in the world, and the previous Buddha was called Dhammakaya. So what you see there is the previous Buddha, and who you see lying on the ground is the Buddha to be in our present era. So the Buddha to be is still cultivating his perfections in order to be a Buddha in the future. And the Buddha to be, the Bodhisattva at that time, his name was Sumedha, and he was a hermit. You know what a hermit is? What is a hermit? Someone who's like an ascetic who practices spiritual cultivation, maybe lives in the forest, survives off fruit, maybe dresses in simple bark or fabric which he's made himself from natural sources. Okay. So in a time when there's no Buddhism around, then generally that is the best people can do as a spiritual way of life. So he had become one of those because the Buddha had not yet arisen in the world for him to learn from. So Sumedha the hermit. And one day, seeing as he had cultivated his meditation to a very high level, he was actually able to float through the air as a result of his psychic powers. And as he was floating through the air one day, he saw that all the villagers were in a hurry to finish building a road. And when he came down to ground level again and asked them what they're up to, they said, "Oh, we are in a hurry to finish this road because we have heard that the Buddha and his community of monks are about to pass through our area, and we would like the road to be finished before they arrive." And he thought to himself, "Oh, this would be a very good opportunity for me to practice generosity." So they thought, "Well, you've got all these magical powers, we'll give you a special piece of road that's going to be really hard for you to fix." So they gave him a particularly badly damaged part of road. But because he was wanting to get the maximum of results from his generosity, he decided to do it all by hand, without using any magical powers. So he got out his bucket and spade and started to fill in the gap in the road. And it took so long that by the time the Buddha turned up, he hadn't quite finished his section of the road. So he thought, no problem, I will just lie in the remaining hole in the road. And in this picture it shows him lying down on his front, but according to our teacher in Thailand, you should look at the inset above. There actually he said that he lay on his back with his hands in a gesture of prayer, and invited the Buddha and all of the company of monks to walk over him like a human bridge. So a little bit more of sacrifice than Sir Walter Raleigh laying down his cloak in the puddle or whatever. But it turned out that even though the Buddha and all the monks walked across him, he was so filled with joy by his privilege to be able to practice generosity in such a way on that occasion that all of them seemed completely weightless passing over his body. And at the end of that, having been walked over by all those monks, the Buddha turned back to him and said, "You are going on to be the next Buddha for sure, and you only have to wait 100,000 more aeons, and you'll get to be a Buddha like me." And generally, the prediction from a previous Buddha is the final sort of the final factor which a bodhisattva needs in order to reach Buddhahood. So it's like once you've had that prediction in place, then all you need to do is put in the time and good effort, and you will reach Buddhahood for sure. So this is an example of a very unusual form of generosity on behalf of the Bodhisattva, but it was the one which cemented his place in becoming a Buddha in the future. So, and a very important part of his cultivation of the perfections. So, for today, I will just leave you with a couple of announcements for those who don't already know. Next full moon coming up will be Tuesday, the 14th of June. I think we'll have it in person and online. It will be aligned with the normal Tuesday class. There's still places on the European Monk Ordination Program, which starts at the beginning of June and is going to be held in Denmark. And also, we still have an early bird rate available for the weekend retreat between 8th and 10th July. It's somewhere down near Yeovil in Somerset at a place called the Open Pathway Retreat Center. So you might want to look up the themeditationstory.com website that has all the details there. But for today, I think that's all I will leave you with. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to hear from you at this point. And if not, then we have an additional special patriotic activity in just a moment, lighting a Jubilee beacon. But before we do that, I think we will ask our Auntie Ray to come back. Yes. So may all of you enjoy happiness, success, and prosperity in life, and be inspired to cultivate effective generosity whenever the opportunity arises for you.